Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It seems like everyone has had the chance to connect via audio and everything. So I think we're going to get started. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We are really excited to have this webinar. We've been planning it for some time now, but we thought that now more than ever, it would be very important to talk about this and to provide as many resources as we can with experts in the field at Emory. So thank you so much, Megan. Um, our other professional will be here soon, Jonathan. But Megan and Jonathan are going to walk us through some fellowship opportunities that exist for recent graduates and maybe mid-career professionals. I know that today it's a very challenging workforce that we have with the administration and everything. So we are hoping to provide as many resources as we can. My name is Lindsay Saber. I am a member of the alumni board. This is my second year on the alumni board, and I graduated from Emory, from Rollins, with an MPH in global health in 2022. So it's been about 3 years at this point, which has been great. I myself actually worked very closely with Megan while I was a student at Emory to write my application and eventually be accepted into the Fulbright program. So I have some experience with fellowships and grants after graduation, and I firsthand saw how impactful it was on my career and my trajectory. And I really think that it can continue to be powerful regardless of where the funding for those fellowships and grants come from. So we're hopefully going to provide some resources, as I said, about kind of how to look for these grants, where to look for these grants, who to talk to at Emory and beyond, especially because even if you've graduated, you still have all of the resources at your fingertips, which is one great part about being an alumni of Rollins. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Megan for now. Thank you so much, Megan.
Lovely. Thank you, Lindsay, and thanks for having me today. So I'm Megan Friddle. I direct the National Scholarships and Fellowships program here at Emory. My team and I are housed in the Emory Pathway Center, which is primarily focused on providing career professional and graduate and professional school support for Emory's undergraduate students, particularly in the college. But over the last few years, my team and I have increasingly provided support for fellowship applicants in many of the graduate and professional programs at Emory, including in Rollins. And so Lindsay is among a group, I would say, of probably 10 Rollins MPH students that we've worked with over the last few years. Primarily on Fulbright applications, although sometimes on applications for other things. And my team and I are excited to work with Rollins students and alumni on the specific fellowship programs and other awards that we support. So my presentation today is going to go through a few of those with an eye toward programs that would be most relevant for either current MPH students or alumni who are sort of in the first maybe few years out of their graduate program. Although many of the programs that I'm going to highlight today are open to applicants up to age 28, age 32, or really beyond at sort of any point in your career. Mostly sort of recent grads of master's programs, but certainly for folks who may be thinking about a pivot, who are thinking about skill acquisition like languages, or who are considering a move into a doctoral program after completing an MPH. There are opportunities here where really age and career level would not be a barrier. They're sort of really open to anyone. And I've highlighted a few alumni in my presentation. These are primarily Emory College alumni, but many are folks who went off and did a master's degree or another kind of program, and then came back and worked with my office. So hopefully they'll give you the sense of sort of what it looks like maybe to choose one of these leadership development programs that also would grant you a second master's degree, or something else like that. So on that note, I will jump into my presentation today. One thing that I have focused on specifically for today's presentation are programs that are primarily funded by either private foundations or by government organizations. As many of you know, there have been significant cuts and elimination of funding from the federal government. And so I'm not going to highlight Fulbright today, but do know that there's a robust community of Rollins alumni who have completed Fulbright grants, and my team and I would be happy to talk to you about Fulbright. So as I said, these are fellowship opportunities for public health students and early career alumni. My office is based in the Pathways Center, and we are national scholarships and fellowships. So first, I want to highlight a few of the international professional programs that my team and I support. These are anywhere from a few months to a few years. Some have a focus on language acquisition. Others have a focus on field work or full-time work with an NGO or another institution abroad. One of these does involve enrollment in a graduate degree program, but the emphasis is much more on leadership development and professional development than it is on sort of academic learning. So these programs are the Luce Scholars Program. This is a partnership with the Henry Luce Foundation and the Asia Foundation, and they select a cohort of recent graduates and young professionals for a one-year placement in Asia that includes immersive language training and a professional or research placement with an organization abroad. And if you're selected for the Luce Scholars Program, the Asia Foundation works with each individual to find a custom work or research placement. So it's a great program. They're particularly looking for folks who have not had much experience in Asia, or who have been to Asia but are looking to spend an extended period of time in a different country or location. This is an award you can apply for directly. There's no sort of campus endorsement or nomination process, but my team and I are happy to help with applicants on the written application and on interview preparation. The second opportunity is the DAAD RISE Professional Program. DAAD is the German Academic Exchange. It's a program of the German Ministry of Education, and they provide a variety of different kind of grants for research, for internships, and for graduate study in Germany. So this one specifically involves summer research placements for graduate students, recent graduates who are interested in working with a company or a research institution in Germany. These tend to be STEM focused, but there's certainly quite a bit of methodological overlap with the work that many of you have done in the public health realm. So this would be something to consider if you have an interest in a more short-term international experience. The third opportunity is the Schwarzman Scholars Program. This program is based at Tsinghua University in Beijing with the support of a foundation in the US. And the goal is to build connections between China and the rest of the world. Participants in the program do complete a master's degree in global affairs at Tsinghua during their time, but the program itself really emphasizes leadership development and immersive experiences to help the scholars understand the current landscape in China. And that can be in a variety of different levels: public health, global health, certainly, business, economics, public policy. We've also had alumni complete this program who focused more on topics like media and the arts. So it's very broad ranging. And then last but not least, the Leland Hunger Fellowship. This is a 2-year placement focused on food and nutrition security. It involves both field work or research and work with on policy and other sort of um, more practical aspects of NGO or nonprofit administration. So this is a sort of unique combination of both applied and policy work. A little bit more about Loose Scholars for anyone who's interested. It's a 13-month commitment that involves language training, that custom professional placement, and travel. And it is open to US citizens and permanent residents under the age of 32. So if this sounds like you, I'll have a QR code for our website, or you can just Google Loose Scholars and see if this sounds interesting. The deadline is in mid-September. And here are a couple of alums from Emory who have participated in the Loose program, both alumni of the college, but also both who pursued master's degrees, not at Emory after they graduated, and then went on to receive a Loose placement. So Zach Denton really focused on international education and language acquisition. He completed a master's degree on that topic at Cambridge and then applied to the Loose program and was selected for a placement in Thailand, where he primarily worked with refugee resettlement on both the sort of practical aspects as well as the policy aspects. Leanne Ibrahim graduated from Emory in 2021 and went on to do an MPH at Vanderbilt. She was a Loose Scholar in 2023-24, and as part of her placement, conducted epidemiological research on epilepsy in Malaysia. The Schwarzman Scholars Program, just a little bit more here. So master's degree from Tsinghua in Beijing. This program is open to applicants regardless of citizenship status. There is a different application process and timeline for folks with a Chinese passport. Everyone else applies in the global competition, and that date this year will be September 10th. So they're really looking for folks with leadership skills and a sort of desire to be forward thinking, particularly about the relationship between China and the rest of the world. And here is our most recent recipient of the Schwarzman Scholars Program. This is Ebony Freeman. She graduated from the Goizueta Business School's BBA program back in 2018 and went on to do a variety of things. She founded a nonprofit focused on disability in the arts. She worked with Google. She was a presidential management fellow. Unfortunately, that program has been discontinued. And applied for the Schwarzman program this past year and was selected. And so just to give you all a sense that the doors for these opportunities do not close immediately after undergrad, immediately after graduate school. There is this larger window of opportunity if you are sort of willing to step outside of your day-to-day life and think about going abroad for a year. A couple of additional opportunities that help fund research or further graduate study abroad. So I mentioned the DAAD RISE program. There are also fellowships available for graduate study and research. These are available in any field. There are a few specialized fellowships, but this is a very broad program and a very large program. There are lots of fellowships and grants available. Second, the Rotary Global Grant. This program is a little bit diffuse. You have to apply through a local Rotary chapter, but they provide up to $30,000 for graduate study or research, and they have much larger grants available for humanitarian projects, either individual or team-based. They need to align with the Rotary areas of focus, but those include things like WASH, maternal and child health, and other things that are often areas of focus for folks pursuing an MPH or working in the public and global health realm. For folks who may be thinking about a doctoral program, I wanted to highlight the Gates Cambridge Scholarship, which is for graduate study at Cambridge. Very well-regarded programs in epidemiology, public and global health at Cambridge. This is full funding for either a PhD or a one-year master's degree. And then the Knight Hennessy Scholars Program, this is for graduate study at Stanford. This fellowship will cover any graduate or professional program, and that includes MD, MBA, JD. So one of the few that includes some of those terminal professional degrees. And I've tried to indicate here which programs are open to applications from folks who are not US citizens, in case that's relevant for anyone, just with the asterisks there. And finally, just a couple more alumni to highlight. Here's Jamie Constantine, who received a Rotary Global Grant to pursue a degree at SOAS in global development. And she also completed a Fulbright the year after she graduated from Emory, and then received funding from Rotary the following year. And then we have Stephanie who graduated from Emory in 2014. She participated in an exchange program the college has with the University of St. Andrews and completed a master's degree there. And then after working in research for a few years, decided she wanted to pursue a PhD, and ultimately completed her PhD in the MRC, that's the research center at Cambridge, focused on cognition and brain sciences. And so just wanted to highlight a few profiles to give you a sense that applying for a fellowship isn't always a totally linear process. Many of the folks that we work with in my office, even young alumni from the college, take a few years to do research, to work, and then decide that the time is right to apply for a fellowship. So if you sort of fall into that category, don't let that hold you back from considering these opportunities. And then this is just a quick slide with some information about how you can learn more. For anyone on the call who's a current student, we do have a Canvas course that you can self-enroll in to learn more about these opportunities. We have an Instagram where we post lots of information about fellowships, how to apply, why to apply. And then the green QR code to the left is for grad student and alumni advising. We use a platform called College Connect, and you have to jump through a couple of hoops to create an account if you're not a current student in the college. So just wanted to make sure those were all available. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Megan. I think that was fantastic, and it highlighted some wonderful, I know fellowships and grants that I have never heard of, so I'm sure that that is the same for many people on this call. Next, we have Jonathan Berman. Thank you so much for joining us, Jonathan. We have introduced ourselves and kind of given a little bit of background, but we would love to hear what you have to say a little bit more about later on professional fellowships and grants.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lindsay, Megan. Really great topic, fantastically pertinent topic. So my name is Jonathan Berman. I started out as a child. You probably should know that about me. I've grown a little bit. Director of partnerships here at the Rollins School of Public Health, and I work specifically at the PACE Center. That's the Professional Advancement and Student Experience Center, third floor of the Triple R building. Come on up and visit us sometime. So my role, Director of Partnerships, relatively new here. I started in January. Not much really has happened since January. It's been, really dull in the world of public health, but somehow I managed to keep myself involved in keeping up with the trends. So my background was in clinical psychology, and I did that for many years. I went into organizational psychology, and then I got into business development, and I created and sold two businesses, and I've been in the world of HR and talent acquisition as well. And probably the greatest joy I've ever had was working with the universities, partnering with the universities to create talent pipelines between the schools and those professional organizations as well. I worked with Johnson & Johnson, Koch Industries, fairly large companies, and on a consulting basis, I've worked with Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Merck, Pfizer, companies like that. Um, so this is just a fantastically pertinent topic. And what I'm going to send to all of you is I'm going to, I don't know, should I put it in the chat, Lindsay? Or are we just going to email it to everybody that fellowship guide? What's your recommendation?
We're
I
gonna
can pop
we
it.
could do either, but we're gonna definitely email it after the call today.
Okay, all right. I'll pop a version of it in the chat for you, um, just for those of you who might want to follow along. Let's see here, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through some of what I'm about to send you. There's a lot of fellowships out there. So I just popped it in the chat, you also, if you want to pull that up. This fellowship guide is something that I created mostly for our current graduate students. So current graduate students that were, asking, what is a fellowship? I've heard about this. I've been told I should get into this. What should I do? So there's a lot of information that's already been covered. Megan, you were already addressing a lot of this information already, but I'm going to share my screen just so we can follow along here. Can you all see my screen? Okay. So this covers a lot of basics, just as, what is a fellowship? I don't think we need to go through that necessarily, but if you're curious, why pursue it? And of course, outlining that there are a lot of different types of fellowships. Probably one area that not a lot of people know about or know of the existence of a lot of them, because oftentimes they're hidden. There's a lot of corporate fellowships, a lot of corporate fellowships. You have to dig to find them. You have to dig to find them. They're not, necessarily advertised, but they can be very lucrative, really great experiences. Also in this guide that I just sent to you, here are the steps for applying to a fellowship. Just a few key things here. There is a website called ProFellow. Many of you may know about that. ProFellow has a lot of fellowships. It does not have them all. So I would consider that you do your due diligence to please research, please research as many as you can, the fellowships that you might be interested in. Another key call out, something that I've heard from students, is make sure that you're qualified. I know this sounds silly, but when we talk about, student fellowships, oh, thank you, Michelle. Student fellowships versus mid-career fellowships, they're very different. And most of these organizations are very, very selective about this. It's not a one size fits all. Also, they often have affinity groups. So many of these fellowships are for, people of lower income. Sometimes they're for people of a certain racial identity. These are sometimes just for women. Sometimes, so you really have to find out if you are qualified, because I would hate for you to waste your time to complete all the paperwork just to find that you're not even in the running to begin with. The other big call out, and this is something that a lot of our students have discovered, this takes time. It takes time. This can sometimes take up to a year, if not longer, for you to be approved. So don't expect that you complete the application, and then you find out next month. Sometimes it's going to take longer than that. Of course, you want to gather all the necessary material. Letters of recommendation certainly really help. For most of these, it's going to require a personal statement. True of a student as well as a professional, that personal statement is extremely important. So I'm not going to go into detail of all of these, but you will also see in this guide, we have it split up. So this first page, or pardon me, this page, I thought I put page numbers in here. Anyway, the first grouping of fellowships are for current students or recent graduates. These are many of the ones that you probably already know about, the Fulbright, Fogarty fellowships, and so on. Of course, we all know about the APHL, CDC fellowships, and so on, ORISE, and so on, Ferguson Emerging Infectious Disease Initiatives, which one of our students was just recently accepted into. But then you'll see on the next page, fellowships for experienced professionals. There's a lot of them, and I keep discovering more. This is not an all-inclusive list. Feel free to refer to this, but folks, there's a lot out there. I can certainly help you with your search. So if you're struggling to find a particular fellowship for your circumstance, please let me know. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. I included in here all the global fellowships because I don't know what your citizenship situation is. So I just put everything out there. So some of these are for, British citizens. Some of these are for Canadian citizens. But you'll see there's quite an exhaustive list. And I also included a section on other, because there's some that didn't quite 100% fit. I wasn't sure exactly where they would fit. So I put that in there. And a great resource, folks, a really good resource. Please look into CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility and Corporate Wellness Fellowships and/or grants. There's a lot out here. There's Net Impact used to be really big a few years ago. They're not as big anymore, but there's a lot of resources out here, and I have the hyperlinks for many of them. Please look into the corporate social responsibility space. A lot of times they have fellowships that they don't openly advertise. The best thing to do is just to reach out to them, start the conversation, say, hey, I'm mid-career, I'm transitioning into the social responsibility space. What can you do to help me? And here's other corporate fellowship programs. I stopped adding to the list because there were so many of them. And people kept telling me, Jonathan, you forgot the D.E. Shaw Fellowship. There's just so many of them out there. So again, I encourage you to please reach out to me if you're looking for one that you can't find. I've also got a lot of great tips. And the first big tip I would tell you is, and I'll put this in the chat, you really want to differentiate yourself. There is a lot of folks who are applying for these fellowships because of what's been going on in the world of public health. You want to somehow differentiate your application, and that can be in your personal statement, something that connects you to the overall mission. And another one too is, and I can't stress this more, please look over the eligibility constraints. I've had a lot of students who very heartbreakingly told me, I put a lot of time into this only to be told, oh, hey, by the way, you're not part of the population that we award this to. Okay, just really read the eligibility criteria, because they do abide by that. Many of these fellowships are created for certain affinity groups. And I think that we would all support those groups, but just understand that they want to focus that money towards that particular population. Yeah, I would start with Pro Fellow. Pro Fellow is a great kind of first swipe, but then feel free to look into these a lot more. I've got plenty of other tips for y'all, but I don't want to compromise the entire time here because we've got a very smart panel of folks here who will help you. But please reach out to me if you do have any other questions, comments, concerns. Happy to help you as best I can.
Thank you so much, Jonathan and Megan. We really, really appreciate it. And I think that everyone, I know that I learned a ton and I was a part of some of these programs. So it's really, really great to have all of your expertise. I think now we're going to open it up to questions. So if anybody has anything that they want to ask, feel free to drop it in the chat, unmute, and ask some questions. I'll give you guys a few seconds to, yeah, to type those out. I guess one question that I have is, what do you think is the best way to stand out, Jonathan? I think that it can be very difficult coming as a student going into these spaces because you feel as though a lot of people have the same experience as you. We're all coming from, similar fields of study or fields of work. So what do you think people should really highlight? And I'm sure that it depends on the application that you're writing and what you're hoping to do. But maybe just give a couple of tips and tricks for that.
Sure. Well, I'll start with a do not do. Do not have ChatGPT write your personal statement. Um, and I realize the temptation is strong to do that. But really, what is differentiating people in the talent marketplace, especially in the world of public health? Remember, public, that important keyword, your ability to communicate. So your personal statement should be a story about yourself and your connection to your passion. And I've heard this from some of the folks who are receiving these fellowship applications is the ones that really grab them by the heart. In other words, tell a story, that my humble beginnings, this is where I started, your epiphany, the thing that drew you into public health, and then where that got you, your master's or your doctorate in public health and the passion that you're carrying forward. Tell a story that's what they want to read. They don't want to, trust me, they can tell if it's written by ChatGPT. So I'd say that's the biggest one is differentiate yourself by just being a great storyteller.
Yeah, also, I think that I am currently in school again, and I've been told time and time again that ChatGPT is just a mix of everything that it's already been fed. So you are trying to stand out in a way that has not been seen before or people have not read about before. And so if you're just taking things from, other applications that have already been put out there, maybe, then you're not going to stand out.
Yeah, you're diluting your power as a communicator.
Yeah.
And that's what they want to hear. They're giving this fellowship to you. They're giving money and support to you as an individual. So they want to hear your heart. And fortunately, ChatGPT doesn't have that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Megan, have you seen any do's or don'ts in these applications that you really think are notable?
Yeah, I do have a couple of pointers, and I'm coming from the background of someone who was trained as a writing instructor, so I often view personal statements and application materials overall from a more rhetorical perspective. This is your opportunity, yes, to share sort of your heart, your passion, what motivates you to do what you do or what you would be able to do through this opportunity. But you also want to keep in mind the sort of rhetorical situation, which is that you have committees that are reading lots of applications. They want to know like the who, what, why, how of your application as quickly as possible. So don't get too bogged down in the narrative hook. They want to be able to easily find the evidence, which is your experience, to show that you fit the selection criteria for this opportunity. So make sure that stuff is easy to find. And then I think last but not least, many of these programs, sort of no matter what the scale, are looking for people who are ambitious or even, I might say, audacious in some of their aims. And making sure you're explaining how this opportunity fits in with your longer term goals and what might be possible for you with the support of this program or this experience that might not be possible otherwise. I just came out of a committee review meeting earlier this morning, and several of the folks who were reviewing applications, the panelists said, wow, this applicant has a great track record. This project they're proposing sounds great, but I just don't understand why it's necessary for where they want to go in the future. And so spending time in the application process, whether that's through brainstorming, conversations with mentors, whatever works best for you, really thinking about like, what's on the line here and like, why am I excited about this? And how will this practically move me toward my goals?
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. I know that when I wrote my application to Fulbright, I remember I said that the reasons why I wanted to do Fulbright, I did a research Fulbright, was because I wanted to go on and get a doctorate, like a PhD. Now, when I was writing that application, I never actually, it's not that I didn't want to, I truly just didn't think that I like had it in me or that it was possible for me. And now I'm in a doctorate program, which is crazy that I actually followed through on that. And it was probably partially because of Fulbright. But I will say that when you were talking about kind of moving things up and making sure everything is in the beginning, I will say that writing these applications takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. I spent so much time and effort, and there were so many iterations of my application to Fulbright. And I know that the reason why I got it was probably because I did. There's many other reasons, just circumstantially, but I think that, you know, having iteration after iteration and really carefully seeing where to put all of the information in the different because there's also different statements a lot of times that you write, and so there's a lot of different moving parts that you think about. Yeah.
Yeah, I just put in the chat some of the things I've been hearing, and that was also one of the things that was echoed from a few different students was start early and just really budget your time. Um, you know, one of the things I love about Rollins students is, man, they're methodical. So most of them have a spreadsheet for every aspect of their life, and so for the ones who are seeking a fellowship, they have this spreadsheet, who the fellowships that they're seeking, the website, where they are in the submission process, just portioning out their budgeting, their time. I think you have to approach it that way. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lindsay, but it sounds like you probably are as strategic and tactical, right?
Yeah, and I think that I definitely got a lot of that from my time at Rollins. Students are very, yeah, all of the spreadsheets my friends had for whether it was jobs, fellowships, whatever. Yeah. Great.
And if I may, the other thing that I heard that at least what the students benefited from, and for any alumni here, thank you so much for sharing and being a part of the current student experience. Students learned a lot about fellowships from alumni.
Mhm.
And if there are any fellowships within your companies that you're currently working, I mean, please let us know. Feel free to send them to me. It's almost like every week someone says, "Hey, you forgot to mention this fellowship." There's too many of them. So this partnering, this student alumni partnership, I think is extremely important, especially if you have been through a fellowship, just to give them the reality test of it does take time. It doesn't happen like that. That was the other shock, I think, for some of our students that, it took sometimes a year for them to hear. They felt that they were ghosted, and then all of a sudden there was a request for more information. Um, so yeah, it takes time and patience.
Yeah. And I think that that can be very hard right now, even with, mid-career professionals where
Yeah.
it's a very turbulent time. And so there might be some uncertainty with jobs right about now. And if you're applying for fellowships, you might not know for a little while. But I also know that a lot of my friends are predicting maybe the future. And so even just looking at options right now, even if you have a job and you are planning to continue with that job, you never know. So you might as well apply and see if in the future you'd want to shift directions or something. Yeah. I don't see any other questions in the chat. Michelle, do you have questions, or Jonathan or Megan, if you have any last words of wisdom, I think we would love to hear it. And then we will also share all of these resources that we've been talking about with this recording.
I would just say use the application process as an opportunity to think about your professional goals. Some of you may have lots of practice at that at this point. I know I'm speaking to some alums who've been out of school for a long time. But even if you feel like you're pretty settled in your career trajectory, this can really be a time to check in and think about, like, what are skills or knowledge or sort of practical experience that I want to add. But also sort of getting in touch with those things like motivation, long-term goals. I often tell students, particularly those who are right on the cusp of graduating from a program, like, this is your opportunity to do some speculative fiction about what your life could look like in the next year, the next 2 years, the next 5 years, maybe further. So if you start to feel sort of pressured by the application process, I think you can release some of that pressure. Like, this is a creative writing assignment. I'm going to write some speculative fiction about what my life could look like in the future. And decide if that feels like it's a fit for you. Trust your intuition. Oh, I just wrote this application about a doctoral program, and I don't think that's actually what I want to do. Well, great. You just answered that question for yourself. So, whatever you can do to, like, lower the stakes enough to make it feel manageable. Obviously, don't lower the stakes too much. That can be really helpful in getting started and, finding some benefit from the process regardless of the outcome.
Yeah.
I think there was a question that
I was just going to say, I think.
Yeah, sorry.
That's me. So I this is just maybe obvious, but with regard to the positions for, like, the corporate social responsibility sector, are HR reps the best people to reach out to, or is there, like, a specific field that corporations usually have for that?
Yeah, great question. And it's a firm maybe. Sometimes the CSRs are actually separate organizations. It's not like part of the corporate thing. So sometimes, yes, I would say at the very least, if you go to the corporate social responsibility pages, oftentimes big companies will have a separate website for that. Typically, they're going to have like a media contact or additional contact information. Those folks are usually very eager to help out, to point you in the right direction. So I would start there. I would also look at, there's a lot of different trade organizations associated with this. There's the Institute of Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability, ICRS. That's a great place to go. And oh gosh, there's just so many individual fellowship and corporate social responsibility organizations. There's just so many out there. HR might be able to help. If you already have an established HR contact, yeah, I think that's what's worth going to. But I would say 8, 9 times out of 10, their corporate their CSR website will probably be able to point you in the right direction.
Great. And Jonathan, do you have any other parting last words?
Other than feel free to partner, feel free to reach out. Happy to help. We've been guiding a lot of students through this process already, so certainly you may have questions that are similar to what the students are going through. Feel free to reach out to us. A lot of what I've discovered as far as this main student questions, I've put into that guide. So hopefully your answer will be there, but if not, feel free to reach out to myself or pretty much anybody on this panel here.
Great. Thank you both so much. We will be sending out all of these resources and good luck to everyone. Thank you again.